And we are live. So, can you feel it? Have you felt the shift that has been going on in this 2020 year? What's up, guys? How is it going? My name is Dash Hanks, coming to you from Amadon, North Dakota. Hope you all are having an amazing day. And on this episode, I want to talk about a lot of the changes that have been happening with people during this 2020 year. So, with that being said, this is live on my YouTube channel. So, if you are coming on live, make sure to drop a comment below. That way, I can give you a proper shout out for spending a little bit of time with me here today. If you are coming on my YouTube channel, go ahead and head over to anchor.fm/Daisha Hanks so you can subscribe to my podcast channel as well. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, and we are back. So, if you're not aware of the 2020 shift that has been going on, throughout this episode, I'm going to be going over three major things that I've started to notice that have been shifting during this 2020 year. I've been talking to a lot of people since the start of January, and I've been going through my own personal changes as well. And every single person that I talk to, they say that they've been going through these three same things. So the three things that we're going to be talking about is the emotional shift, the mental shift, clarity shift. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into one. So the first one is the emotional shift. So what I've noticed within myself, right, and with literally every single person that I have personally talked to, is that they have some point during the year, or maybe even all year, where they feel like life is going amazing, right? Like life is going absolutely awesome. They have all of these great things going around them. But then for some reason, they start feeling frustrated, angry, irritated, lost even at some point for absolutely no reason, or at least it feels like there's no reason for it. Now, I'm no expert, right? But I can confidently say that I'm a pretty aware person. And what I have noticed throughout this year, especially with COVID going on, is that people have been forced to start looking within themselves. And they're also starting to get bored. Now, later on, I'm going to be going through an episode where we talk about the benefits and the real danger when it comes to boredom. But for this specific episode, I want to just stick to the fact of people diving into themselves, right? So looking within yourself is really never a bad thing, right? But it can start to bring up some built up emotions, situations, and thoughts that you may not have known were there in the past. Who do we got jumping on here so far? What is up? Whelp_guide. Emmanuel, what is going on? Jumping on here live. Appreciate you so much, brother. So, as I was saying, everybody is going through this weird shift and they're having to be forced to look within themselves. Now, when you're starting to look within themselves and these emotions, these thoughts, these situations that have been in your past start arising, if you're not prepared to deal with those type of emotions, to get through those type of emotions, it can kind of start to consume you, right? And if you allow those emotions to consume you, then yes, you can start feeling frustrated, angry, irritated for what feels like no reason, when really it's just those built up emotions coming to the surface now, and you didn't know how to deal with them. So, what do we do about this then, right? What do we do when we start feeling frustrated, when we start feeling angry, when we maybe even start feeling annoyed and irritated at our spouse or loved ones for what we feel like is no reason? Well, first off, here's what I would do. The first thing you want to do is give yourself grace. Now, this is probably not what people would have thought I would have said, but this is a massive, massive step in really anything that you're doing. You have to be able to give yourself grace, right? Oftentimes, what will happen is when we're in these moments of frustration without knowing why we're feeling it, we'll start getting upset with ourselves, right? We start thinking, man, like I'm an idiot. Why am I thinking in this way? I have no reason for that. I have this beautiful life. Why am I being so stupid right now? Right? We start beating up on ourselves, and we can't do that. the more that we beat up on ourselves, the more that it's going to drag us into those hard emotions when we're already having those emotions starting to arise at the surface that we weren't prepared for, right? So we don't want to make it worse for ourselves in those type of situations. I remember at the beginning of this year when COVID first started, I went to visit my mom. And for some reason, I was getting so upset with myself on a daily basis. And it got so bad that I started calling myself a failure, right? And it didn't make sense, right? I had just quit my job and started working full time online. I was starting to travel a little bit, right? I had saved up enough money for us to be basically set for an entire year. Like we were completely set on bills, and yet I'm a failure. I wasn't even 25 years old at the time, and I'm a failure. It just didn't add up and make sense. And yet I felt those feelings, right? And what was going on is that I was finally in a situation where I felt calm, I felt relaxed, I felt connected, right? And so all of those built up emotions of me thinking that I was a failure, that I was holding on to for so long and storing away deep down, they were finally able to come about because I was in a relaxed state. Right. I finally had the room. I finally had the time to actually feel those emotions. So they started coming to the surface. Right. So that's what will happen. And it's okay, right? The first thing that you have to understand is not to beat up on yourself. You have to give yourself grace. If you're like me and you have a hard time with giving yourself grace or forgiving yourself, one thing that always helps me is thinking of myself as an innocent child, right? If my younger sister, my niece, or even a younger cousin of mine, right, an innocent child, if they were going through the same thing, let's say that I was 40 years old, 50 years old, and they were 23 years old at the time, would I think of them as a failure if they were going through the same thing? No, right? My 23-year-old niece was out there trying to build up her own business. She just quit her job and started working full time online, was able to save up enough money to be set for an entire year. I wouldn't think of her as a failure, right? So why should I think of myself as a failure? It just doesn't make sense, right? It starts allowing yourself to shift the perspective that you may have over yourself. There's this really cool quote, and it's really a commandment, right? That's from the scriptures, and basically, it's treat your neighbor as you would treat thyself, right? Treat your neighbor as you would treat thyself. But that saying also goes the other way, right? If your neighbor or friend was going through the same thing, would you be so hard on them? Probably not, right? So why are you being so hard on yourself? So that's the first thing that I would do. The second thing that I would do, let's see here, going to go ahead and push this off here. So the second thing that I would do here is actually something that I learned recently while on an interview with my friend Katie. And basically, she says one of the things that she always does is she asks herself this question, right? And the question is, what does this have to do with me, right? So if I'm feeling angry, frustrated, irritated for no reason at all, the question that I'm going to ask myself is, what does this have to do with me, right? Why am I feeling frustrated? Well, I'm feeling frustrated because I feel kind of antsy, right? Being stuck inside and not being able to travel, not being able to do these things. I feel like I have so much energy that I don't know what to deal with, right? So, what would be the next question then? Well, okay, what's the best way for you to no longer feel antsy? Well, sitting inside and complaining about the fact that I'm feeling antsy probably isn't the way to go, right? And that's what a lot of people do. Instead of actually finding a solution to the problem, they stay stuck in this like mindset of, like the life is out to get me, right? The world is out to get me instead of working for me. So the second thing is just to ask yourself the question, what does this have to do with me? Why am I feeling this way? Well, if I'm feeling this way because I'm antsy, what things can I do to no longer feel antsy? Well, I could go outside, right? I could go for a walk. I could interact with people on Facebook to make me feel better. I could go and watch a YouTube video that makes me feel happy and funny. One thing that I kind of do now that really, really helps is thinking of a really, really happy moment. One thing that always makes me happy is my niece, right? So one of the things that she always says that kind of kicks me out of that frustrated state is, oh my gosh, right? She always says, oh my gosh. It's just like the cutest thing in the world. And every single time that I hear that within my head, it allows me to knock myself out of that. So if I'm feeling antsy and I think of the, oh my gosh, it just allows me to calm down a little bit so I'm not so stuck in that state. So that's basically it for the emotional shift. Let's go ahead and get into the second one, which is the mental shift. Give me just a second to go ahead and take a drink here. All right. So When it comes to the second one is the mental shift. So this one is really simple, right? This is basically meaning that people are kind of starting to wake up, right? Or being more aware of the world around them, being more aware of themselves, their own emotions, how the world affects them, and how little control most of us have over what goes on in the world, right? And it's a good thing, right? This is great because for us to make a change in all the problems that we have going on in the world, we have to be able to be more aware of those problems. But since there are so many people being aware at one time, this is kind of where it gets tricky, right? Because some people kind of start getting angry, right? They start being aware that, wow, I don't really have that much control over what's going on. Wow, like I'm really not that aware throughout the day. And they start getting angry and frustrated, not just with themselves, but they start getting angry with other people. They're like, what the heck? Like, why wasn't I taught this information before? Why didn't I know this in the past? Why didn't my school teach me this? And what will happen is if you have enough people getting angry all at the same time, it's like chaos, right? It's like chaos. People start getting bored as well, which again just creates chaos. So, what should we do, right? With this mental shift going on, what should we do? Well, this is actually pretty simple as well, right? We need to become more aware that we're becoming aware, right? I know that kind of sounds weird. So let me explain. So, becoming more aware of us becoming aware. The way to control the results of this mental shift will be by recognizing that there's a shift going on, right? Let me explain a little further. Once we are aware of something, we're able to control it. So, if we're starting to recognize that we're becoming more aware than the average person, instead of being angry at the world, for not knowing sooner, right? For not teaching us these practices at a younger age. Start thinking of what type of things can you do now with your newfound knowledge, right? What things can you now do with all the information that you're now aware of? Because what happens is that, yes, people start becoming aware of some things, but then they're kind of blindsided by other things, right? They start becoming less aware of the consequences that their actions can actually cause. So, become more aware of you becoming aware. That's what you can do to help with this mental shift. So, recognize that you're becoming aware and start being aware of what you're going to do with that information. There's this quote that says knowledge is power, right? But really, knowledge is only potential power, right? Knowledge is only potential power. It is only power if you utilize it. You could have a million books in the world. You could have read every single book in the library, but unless you do something with that information, it's basically just sitting there. Knowledge is potential power. So, what are you going to do with that new knowledge? What are you going to do with you becoming more aware? Are you going to utilize it for a better purpose more than just for yourself? Right. So, that's the second one. The third and final one is the clarity shift. Now, this one is interesting, right? Over the past 6 months, I've been talking with a lot of interesting people. And one thing that's kind of crazy is to hear how the consistent change in people's clarity, their goals, the next steps that they want to take in life, and what they truly desire, and how that's been shifting throughout the like basically the entire year, right? I remember on the phone, I was talking on the phone with like three different people, right, within a 24-hour period with like three different one of my friends, and each one of them said the same exact thing, like Daisha. There is some type of shift going on. There's some type of shift happening. I was wanting to create like a certain business, but now I feel myself being pulled in the opposite direction, right? And at first, I was kind of dumbfounded, right? Because throughout my entire year, right? Throughout my entire 6 months of me moving from Oregon, going to North Dakota, going to Idaho, going to all these places, right? I felt the same exact thing. When I first started out throughout this year, I was like, you know what? For the next 5 years, I'm going to be doing nothing but affiliate marketing. I'm not going to do a podcast. I'm not going to do a YouTube channel. I'm not going to do Instagram. I'm only sticking on Facebook. That was my goal, right? But then all of a sudden, I had this pull, right? It was like this uncertain and unclear feeling of what it was that I wanted to do. At first, I was super clear. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but then all of a sudden, now I'm pulled in the opposite direction. That can feel like such a hurtful feeling inside yourself, right? Because you had this vision, you had clarity, but now it's gone. You can feel lost, frustrated, and some people even get so angry at the fact of this, right? And one thing that you'll notice while I continue to talk about this is all three of these shifts kind of tie into each other. Once one starts shifting, so does another, and so does another. So, my question for you is, have you felt this as well? Have you been on a certain path for a long period of time and now all of a sudden you feel like you need to head in the opposite direction? Have you maybe had a certain plan lined out for maybe the next year, but now all of a sudden you're uncertain if you're doing the right thing or not? That has been a big thing as well, right? Am I doing the right thing? And if so, what should we do about it? Right. Well, here's what I did. First off, I took a step back. Right now, this is something that I talked about a lot in my videos before. If you've watched me on like my Facebook lives and all of that, I always talk about taking a step back. And basically, what taking a step back means is just looking at things from a different perspective. Right. A lot of the times we have a specific idea of how we want things to go, how we look at things, right? Things are a specific way, right? So when we're looking at our life, we think, man, my life is just so jumbled. It's so crazy. It's so frustrating. And being in the middle of all of that can give you kind of a blurred vision of what is actually going on within your reality. So when you allow yourself to take a step back, it allows you to see things from a different perspective. So what do you do when you take a step back? Basically, what you do is you allow all of your expectations of what you should be doing, right? You allow all your expectations of what should be happening in the world, and you just allow yourself to be open, right? Be open to what is going on. Instead of trying to control everything and the situations that are going on, allow yourself to be an observer. And this is going to be a hard one, right? I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but it's going to be something that is necessary for you to be able to take a step back to head in the right direction for you. So the first step, take a step back and let go of all expectations just for a moment, right? Even if it's only for 5 minutes while you're doing this exercise. The second thing is I started asking myself, what do I truly want? Right now that I've taken a step back, I don't have any expectations of what I should be doing, right? What do I truly want? Now, one of the things that really helps, right, with figuring out what you truly want in your life is to get into a happy state, right? So the thing that I was talking about earlier when I was talking about my niece, right? How every single time that I hear her say, "Oh my gosh," it just makes me happy, right? So for you, the second step is to think about what you truly want. But before you do, make sure you're in a happy state. You've let go of expectations. Let's get into a happy state now. What makes you happy, right? Maybe it's seeing your kids outside playing and one of them is tumbling over each other and they're just laughing and you see the smiles on their face. Maybe it's waking up and having your dogs jump on the bed like I do in the morning. Maybe it's going outside with your horses and your pets. Maybe it's seeing your family after not seeing them in years. Maybe it was just one single moment throughout this year that just made your heart happy. What's one thing that makes you happy? And then ask yourself, what do I truly want? Once you have that, once you know exactly what you want, the next step for you is to ask yourself, well, what steps can I take today that's going to help me with getting to what I truly desire? Right? Because if what I'm doing right now, what I'm doing today is going to get me to that desire that I just envisioned for myself, then I no longer have to be unsure about the question, am I doing the right thing? I know that I'm doing the right thing. If I have a vision and I'm taking the steps to get there, I am doing the right thing. There is no uncertainty or something that's not clear. You have that clarity. And when you have clarity, here's the thing, guys, your mental and your emotional things will start to naturally balance themselves out, right? When you have clarity, you don't feel frustrated and angry. You feel peace, you feel happiness, right? And your mental state is going to start balancing itself out as well, right? Because if your mental state is used to being frustrated and angry all of the time, but then all of a sudden now you're consistently being happy and grateful for things, then your mental state has to be able to balance itself out. It can't continue on its own. So for me, right, I wanted to create content. I want to kind of just give you guys an example of kind of how this works. So for me, I really wanted to create content. At the beginning, I was like, you know what, I want to do affiliate marketing. Started to have this pull. I started getting angry, frustrated with myself, my family, like all of my loved ones. It was just a horrible time. I even got at medication at one point this year. But then all of a sudden, I decided to let it go. I was like, you know what? I don't even care, right? I'm just going to let it all go. And I'm going to ask myself, what is it that I want? And I realized what I want is I just wanted to create content. I wanted to be able to share my message with other people. I wanted to learn about something, share it with people, learn about something and share it with people. That was it. I love technology. I love being able to kind of express myself in a different way, being able to be on camera. So, how was I going to be able to do that and still be able to kind of incorporate me being able to simplify things as well? Well, I started thinking, well, what can I do today? What could actually allow me to be able to make money doing this, right? Because that's a huge thing. I really just need to make money as well. Everybody has to make money to survive in this world. So I started thinking, well, if I want to create content, I could go on YouTube. I could go on podcasting because that allows me to create content that people can play over and over and over again. If I get up to a certain amount of subscribers, if I get a certain amount of people listening to me, that's going to bring me an income. And now all of a sudden, I get to create content, I get to help people and make money all at the same time. And this clarity started to form. So, you may still be scared of things, right? During the 2020 year, scarcity is a natural thing, right? We're all going to be fearful of the unknown. But the real trick is not allowing yourself to be consumed by the mental and emotional shifts that are going on. We're always going to have that scarcity, maybe a little bit more this year, maybe a little bit more of a pull, maybe a little bit more of uncertainty. But if we have the tools, the guidance, the preparation to be able to get through those hard times, it's not going to be so difficult. So, if you are listening on my podcast channel, make sure to head over to my YouTube channel to subscribe to that channel. That way, we can personally interact with each other, and I can personally give you a shout out for spending a little bit of time with me here today. If you're on the YouTube channel, vice versa, go ahead and head over to anchor.fm /Dacia Hanks so that way you can add me on my podcast channel. I will catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for being on here with me today, and bye for